Okay guys, it is time for a new update here on the Bitcoin price because within the last 24 hours we have seen a very interesting development and it's time to take some actions on our trades because I'm right now still in a $400,000 long swing position, but things may change relatively quickly because not only are we going to take a look at very interesting on-chain datas today, no guys, I also want to talk about our descending triangle that I already mentioned to you in my last video and where I already showed you guys that we will most likely, although we were bullish on the smaller time frames, that we would most likely top out at the $21,500 level for now. And looking at the charts guys, if we are heading here on the smaller time frames now, we can already see that exactly this happened. We topped out at the 20,000, sorry, not the 21,000, at the $20,500 level, exactly at our downward sloping resistance here on the daily time frame with our descending triangle. The question now is, are we going to break it to the downside? Do we need to expect a lot more downside for Bitcoin to come? What are our on-chain data saying? Guys, make sure to stick around till the very end of this video because we are going to take a look at the big and also the small time frames. We will think about what these new on-chain data are showing us that just got published. And also guys, besides that, I would always appreciate it if you could smash up a like here on today's video because last video we reached 1,000 thumbs up. I would appreciate it guys. Come on, let's reach 1,000 likes here on today's video once again, and also make sure to leave a comment down below guys and subscribe and activate the bell so you don't miss out on any future uploads. But now let's not talk too much. Let's just jump right into the charts. First of all guys, let's jump into the smaller time frames because on the smaller time frames there is really the interesting things are really happening right now here on the smaller time frames, and it's not on the 1 hourly here, on the 4 hourly here. No, it's actually on the 1 hourly because there we can really see what has been happening, and we can see that Bitcoin is more or less actually here going for a second retest, right? We just saw a second retest here for Bitcoin on this downward sloping support. It is not an all too good sign, but I have to say the likelihood of us actually pumping here again to the upside and retesting the $20,000 to $20,500 level, $20,500 level, I think the chances are relatively high that we are forming here an M pattern before then correcting to the downside because, like I said, on the daily time frame, this massive descending triangle right now still has a bigger chance of breaking to the downside. And this is why also, guys, I want to tell you at what prices I am going to go all in. At what prices am I going to start buying Bitcoin heavily? At what prices am I going to open up long positions more heavily? Because this is right now a relatively small trade, $400,000 in position size. I have margin on the sideline to scale this trade up in the case that we are falling to the downside, because maybe you guys can remember we discussed something on in the last video. We discussed that Bitcoin pretty much on the monthly time frame in the last couple of bear and bull cycles always bottomed out with a massive 30% wick to the downside on the monthly candle. The only time this didn't happen was actually here in the bear market 2018. Normally we also always saw a 30% monthly candle wick as a bottom, right? So we are now here in decision mode, guys. On the daily time frame, we have a descending triangle. If it breaks to the downside, we for sure are breaking this upward sloping monthly support. And I mean, the likelihood of us then just wicking quickly down, like I showed you in my yesterday's video, to $14,000 to $16,000. And that actually would be, let's take a look here, the $14,000 level, guys, if we're wicking down and finishing off this bear market with a massive wick to the downside on the monthly, like we did it multiple times in history for Bitcoin already. I mean, in this case, we would see prices of $14,000 to $16,000, $14,000 here in the worst case. This is why my liquidation price is now already at the $16,300 level, and I am for sure ready to scale this position up, to add margin and equity to this trade. So my liquidation price even moves below the $14,000 level in a worst case. This worst case scenario, we don't need to fear all too much yet, but we have to keep something in mind. First of all, Bitcoin balances on exchanges. This means how many Bitcoin exchanges are right now storing is declining since the Corona dump massively. So we can see that during the Corona dump there was a huge spike. A lot of people through the 2018 bear and bull market, right? A lot of people like OG holders sold their Bitcoin. A lot of Bitcoin moved to exchanges. And then during Corona, before we now saw the massive run up to 60K, we can see that there was a peak. And since then, Bitcoin on exchanges are declining. because more people are buying Bitcoin and holding them long term than before. There was still a big inflow of new Bitcoin going onto exchanges and exchanges holding a lot of them, since people wanted to be flexible to sell them immediately if the market crashes. And even though we are crashing right now, the balances are still decreasing, which is more or less a good sign. But we have to keep in mind this metric also is not 100% accurate. It doesn't mean that we need to bottom out. It can still go a little bit lower, and the Bitcoin price can also still go a little bit lower, but it definitely shows us that supply is step by step drying up and that the bottom must be within the next 1 or 2 weeks. But that's not really the interesting on-chain data. I want to talk about this, and this is very interesting. This is the number of active entities, 7-day moving average for the complete Bitcoin market, and we have the number of transaction entity adjusted, right? So this is this and the chart before we just saw, they are pretty much coming together, right? It's entity adjusted, so how many transactions, right, per entity, and not just like spam transactions and stuff like that. And what we can see here is that there is something that is called a low activity channel. And this low activity channel always is in bear markets, right? Or when price is not completely skyrocketing to the upside, when we are not seeing a market peak. Normally Bitcoin is inside of this relatively low activity channel, and in this low activity channel we normally don't see massive price moves to the upside, because there's just not much activity, not to the upside but also not to the downside. One thing we saw this year, last year, which is completely different to before, is that we didn't saw a blow off top, but much worse, we actually saw the top of the market activity already happening in January 21. There was already the top in the market activity, and we still continue to go higher. We even saw a second run up, which I still believe was a false run up caused by manipulation. People, for example, with the Elon Musk news and so on and so on. So I think this was a manipulation move, and we can see that this move happened while we were in a very low activity actually in the entire market itself. So this is not a sustainable pump, and all of the people that were buying here, they will probably sell now, because they were buying in a low activity channel. So it was pretty much all FOMO buyers that bought here, right? Because the people in the crypto space itself, they were at a low activity, so they were not buying much and they were also not selling much. So it was all newcomers here. So these newcomers could get washed out now still, and this is why the potential of this wick down to the $14,000 to $16,000 is also a little bit higher, just because we saw this very unnatural price behavior during the second half of 2021, where we should have already been in a long-term bear market, right, correcting very slowly to the downside, like we normally do here on the monthly candles for Bitcoin. So now, guys, we just need to expect the worst case, a final wick. I'm preparing for that. I'm keeping margin ready in the case that on the daily time frame our beautiful descending triangle breaks to the downside. I will make sure to open a short scalp position that I will close in the $15,000 range, and besides that, I will just then scale up my long positions and enjoy the ride up then sooner or later for Bitcoin again. But guys, let's just keep an eye on Bitcoin for now. Maybe we are very lucky and Bitcoin, against all chances, breaks here now to the upside outside of its downward sloping resistance that is keeping Bitcoin here in this descending triangle right now. And we can see a massive run up to the 27 and then to the 36 and then to the $50,000 level till we have all resistance behind us and we reach a new all-time high. This would be the best case, but for now, we need to be careful. We need to keep an eye on this resistance here, right now at around 20,300 to 20,500. And as long as this level is not broken to the upside with a daily candle, I mean, there's really no way I am preparing for a massive pump yet. I'm going to still remain a little bit more careful. But guys, now, if you enjoyed the content, smash up a like. Let's reach 1,000 likes like we did on the last video as well. Make sure to share the video with your friends. Leave a comment down below and subscribe to the channel if you enjoyed the content. We are going to see us in the next video. Till then, bye.